All right, it's going.
Okay, we're live. Perfect. My name is Jake, and this is my brother Nate, and we're just gonna talk about the baseball offseason. We typed up all our predictions, free agency, trades, anything like that, and I even had all of my predictions are in rostered order at the end that we'll get to see. But we're basically just gonna run through player by player and give our 2 cents and chop it up. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
excited.
offseason has just begun, but we're already excited to get it underway.
Yeah, I can't wait. And you can see here we're starting with the big guy, the big name of the offseason, and for good reason as what he did in the ALCS. And then obviously they didn't win the World Series, but he is still Juan Soto. You go first, Nate. You can
All
start it
right.
off with your prediction.
Very original landing point. I'm gonna give Juan Soto to the New York Yankees. I think, despite that little like snafu with the press conference right after the World Series, I think the Yankees are the perfect fits for Soto, and I think the Yankees need Soto, so they're gonna offer him something he just can't refuse.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the Yankees. They're not going to let their star player walk, especially after. I mean, the other big contender is the Dodgers, and they just lost them in the World Series. And like, what is a Yankees move of letting Juan Soto walk to the team that you just lost in the World Series to? That's not New York. That's not Yankees. That's not a big market move. I think it makes sense for Soto too. I mean, you're in a ballpark that it's made for lefties. You hit the most home runs in your career by far, and you're just going to continue to hit more and more, especially as you kind of. I think Soto, as he goes into his career, is going to be able to tap into more of that power as he kind of. I mean, I don't know. It'll go and come with the average and the
Definitely.
walks and all that, but I think there will be more power, and we'll see some 50 home run seasons, especially if he's able to stay in New York with that short porch and right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just perfect for him. I don't really see any reason why he would not stay in New York. They're a top contender. They're gonna pay him, and those two
Yeah, and
teams.
looking at the Yankees, if they don't sign him, I mean it's a pretty clear hole. Like the whole season, it was kind of talked about how it's Judge and it's Soto, and then there's not much else in the way of help. And like you kind of at the end by the end of the year, I mean Jazz was doing some stuff, and Austin Wells ended up
Definitely.
rebounding to almost snag. I don't know what the rookie of the year race outcome is quite yet, but he ended with a great season, and obviously what Stanton did in the playoffs. But there's injury concerns, and none of these guys have proven over a long period of time sustained success. So if you don't have Soto getting on base in front of Judge, I become worried very fast about this team.
Yeah, I think just echoing again. I think it's too good of a fit. I mean, they need him. He needs them.
Yeah, and I mean not to hard. We won't go this long on every player, but just because it's Soto, I mean, what I don't even think I'm trying to think of the other teams. And like when I was thinking about where Soto could go, and it's like, okay, Dodgers, obviously, because maybe he just wants to win so badly that it's a team that he just did it. But it's like other than the Dodgers and the Yankees and maybe the Mets, which is another case, but it's a lot of teams that I don't see the Yankees letting him walk to with the amount of money that they have at their disposal. Like I just think the Yankees are always going to get the final say to match whatever offer, and they're never going to say no at the end of it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Who's up next on our list? It is
I'm looking
Willie
here and I
Adames.
see Willie Adames. Why don't you go first on
Yeah, Willie. I liked my Willie Adames pick. I think it was a little more out of the box, definitely than Juan Soto. I have Willie Adames signing for to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I actually did. I had a contract prediction somewhere. I wrote it down. Let's
I
see.
mean,
Because I said, yeah, we had a superlative question that's kind of this, but yeah, I had 6 for 185. Um, I mean Willie Adames, like if we look at his numbers, he's just been so freaking consistent. I mean, you're talking 7 to 800 OPS. He's a well above he's an above average hitter. He's an above average defender, and he's in his late 20s. He's going to put up 3 to 5 WAR seasons for the next 6 years, and I think that's easily worth the money that they'd pay him.
I
And
mean,
with Pittsburgh and them not knowing what's going on with O'Neill Cruz and all that, I think it makes a lot of sense, and they could kind of surprise some people who might have thought maybe he's destined for the Dodgers or one of these other big market teams, maybe the Giants, after Posey just talked about their need for a shortstop. But I really think they're going to plug that hole, and with how good Pittsburgh's pitching staff is right now, I think they can really focus on putting that money towards hitting. And especially like, I mean, okay, their pitchers are Skeens, Chandler, Jones. I mean, you're even call it the Ashcraft, Harrington. Like all these guys are cheap. And even if you do, what if you trade Keller? You know, save some money there, get a hitter like Adames that can really make a difference in a lineup that didn't have a lot of difference makers this year. So that's my 2 cents.
yeah. I mean, the payroll concern for the Pittsburgh Pirates is kind of the biggest thing, but obviously he's a best fit. He's a really good fit there. He's an RBI's machine. Like Willie Adames is that guy, and that's why I have him going to a team that seems very complete, maybe minus the shortstop position, since they let um, ever since they let their shortstop go to the Chicago Cubs. I think the Atlanta Braves have not been the same, and I think that with Willie Adames being like that final piece of the puzzle, their lineup, and Acuna coming back next year, Olson bouncing back, I think that it's just a fit too good to ignore. So I have Willie Adames going to the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, shortstop's definitely a fit with the Braves. I think if we're worried about contracts, I mean they are paying an arm and a leg out there to every other position. So I would not be shocked if they go just a little bit of a cheaper route, just because I mean you're talking Olson big contract, Murphy, Albies, Acuna obviously, and Riley at third. Harris has a big contract in center now. Ozuna has a big contract. Like that's every other position. So I mean I agree. It does leave a glaring hole, and if they are desperate to patch it, he's a good fit.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Who's up next?
Next,
It's Jurickson Profar. And this order is totally random, by the way, just how we typed it in. So if anybody's wondering what it is, it's nothing in particular. Profar, career year this year. I mean, what else can you say? He was top prospect, kind of flamed out. Where I am a diehard A's fan, which you guys will all come to know soon. But he was terrible in his one season there. I mean, he got the freaking yips from second base and couldn't throw it over. I just unwatchable, and I was good riddance when he was gone. And now, of course, it's the curse of saying that. But he's back, and he started in the All-Star game, which I never would have expected when he was an A. And I mean, he was working with what, Tatis's uncle or something. He did some
something like
off-season
that.
academy and found some next level. So good for him. But where do we see Adam or Jurickson Profar going? You're
I
up
mean,
first.
he's gonna get his bag, and I just
You hope.
looking at his career, I mean, it seems like everywhere but San Diego has just been bad for him. So why have him leave? I have the Padres resigning him. I think he's important to that unit. I mean, he's the heart and soul of their team, which a lot of them have said. And he's just too much of a everywhere else he's been in his career. To your point, he's been disappointing, and now he's had this huge career year in San Diego after a few decent years in San Diego. And I think why let him go?
Yeah, I think I wanted to put him in San Diego just because of what you said with the relationships I know he has with Tatis and Machado and that whole team. But with what they're doing right now, I mean, they gave that massive contract to Bogarts that's kind of strapped them up a little bit. I mean, they turned down Ha-Sung Kim's offer, which makes me think they're worried about money. And maybe it's that they're saving it and putting it towards Profar. But at the end of the day, Profar is not a good defensive player, basically at any position. And that's something that the Padres have such a luxury at other spots. that I think if they're gonna put him in a DH or a left field, yeah, they could get someone who's a better hitter for cheaper. Like
Hmm.
Profar is I don't know. He's just kind of such a tweener for me that it's hard to put him on a Padres team that might have to allocate their dollars a little more wisely. Which is why I say the team that he'll end up with is the LA Angels, a team that never allocates their dollars wisely and always gives a massive bag to guys who it seems like, oh boy, okay, and I just not to bag on Jurickson Profar all that much, but it seems like the kind of move that I'm gonna see Jurickson Profar, and he's gonna be on some random team in the playoffs in like 2 years after signing with the Angels, and I'm gonna be like, what happened to that guy? Like, just flamed out right away.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I don't know.
I,
I just I don't know. I think the Angels are not really picking a direction right now. I mean, we're recording this hours after the 34-year-old Kyle Hendricks signing, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I, I think I agree fully with that last bit about. I think Profar will sign for big money with the Angels and will be out of the league or on a random contender looking way better than he did on the Angels in a few years. I think that he'll get a huge bag and then do nothing. And that's kind of the quintessential Angels player.
Oh God. Okay. Well, next guy up, Alex Bregman.
Alex Bregman.
Guy not played for any other team than the Astros. He had that obviously great 2019 season, almost 9 WAR, led the league in walks, second in MVP, and then his kind of we've seen him return to kind of what we expect, a 4 to 5 win player at third base. He's entering his 30s, so we've probably seen his prime die down. But I mean, big part of those Astros World Series teams. I just, at least for me, I think it's a no-brainer. They re-sign him. You don't have a big prospect or anything, or anyone who's stepping right in. So I think Bregman will want to re-sign. His swing and the Crawford boxes are just the perfect match, I think, until they pick up Isaac Paredes, like I've been begging that they do for a good bit now. I think Bregman's going to be the guy at third.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think unless they've got someone lined up for third, they're not going to let Bregman walk. And unless there's something going on in the Houston GM room that we don't know about, where they're going to pick up Isaac Paredes or someone else from a different team, the third base market this year is kind of thin, and Alex Bregman is an Astro. So I don't see any reason why they should re-sign it as it stands.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're talking about a team that doesn't have a lot of assets in the way of prospects to deal. And then also, I just think there's that sentimental value of even if there was a third baseman that was Bregman's caliber, I think you're willing to pay Bregman more just because of who he is and who he was for your team. I
Definitely.
think he brings a lot to that fan base. So I like Bregman staying with the Astros, and I think that was a solid consensus by us. The next pick, very spicy for first big kind of splash and the big pitcher on the market, Corbin Burns. Nate, it is your pick first. I'm excited to
I
hear where you got him going.
I think that Corbin Burns is going to go to a team that likes to throw money around. I mean, that's undoubtable. But I don't think any of the big Yankees or Dodgers are going to want to dish out the money to get him after all their big
Okay.
pitching contracts. I think he's going to go to your San Francisco Giants. I think
Oh,
that
I'm repping the Giants jersey right now.
I think that I mean we'll get to Snell later. I think that he's destined elsewhere, and the Giants are gonna want to spend the big bucks to get someone in. They've got a whole new administrative body in San Francisco, and I think they're gonna try and make a splash year one to just say we're here, we're competing, deal with it.
I no, I like it. I think the Giants are always in on those big guys, and staking the claim that this is finally when they get him. I think makes sense. I mean, they had the chance. I mean, they had Rodon on their team, and they let him walk to New York. So it's just it's so tough to kind of back it up. But like you said, it's Posey now, so they've got a new system out there. Hopefully, they can get the big fish this year. No more Arson Judge going to the Giants. I've got him going to the Mets, though. I just think Steve Cohen's going to see his team losing the Dodgers with what their pitching staff is now going to be this year with Yamamoto, Otani, Glasnow, Miller, and God, Stone. For some reason I just never can I remember Stone on the first try, and that's if they don't sign Walker Buehler or Flaherty or anybody else in free agency. So I think the Mets are going to look at them as kind of the bar, as you would say. I mean, I just got done finish watching the Red Sox Yankees documentary on Netflix about that big comeback, and it's like they talk about it in free agency. They're like, whatever the Yankees did, that was the bar. The Red Sox got to match that. The Yankees go get Clemens, we got to get Schilling. And I just think you're kind of in this race where it's both New York teams and the Dodgers that are just they have this financial aspect that not every other team has. So they're on a short list for Corbin Burns services.
Yeah, I think the Mets are gonna make some big moves in free agency as they do every year, and I can definitely see Burns go.
Yeah, and if you take a look here, I mean the Mets rotation right now, it's guys that I like, and that obviously there's something there. Kodai I think can be solid. Budo looked good out of the pen, and I mean I like Christian Scott, who's hurt, and I think Brandon Sproat will come up on the early part of the year, but there's still a lot of question marks. And I mean, you needed kind of a miracle of Manaya and Severino coming and being great last year to
Yeah,
bring you to the NLCS. And even if you re-sign those guys and expect the same thing, I don't think you're going to get it. So I don't think, and I don't have them going back to New York. So that kind of makes sense. But I do think they're going to go and get the big fish like they're just going to go all in. Like 2 years ago, you saw them do it with Verlander and Scherzer, and it
yeah,
didn't end up working out, but those guys were well past their prime. And I don't think anyone's going to argue that Corbin Burns is worse than those guys were when they signed with the Mets. So I don't see how they don't throw money at the problem for at least one more, give it one more try.
yeah. I I I see what you're saying.
Um,
Looks like
okay.
next
Who
we've
is up
got
next?
another pitcher, who's older, but he had a really great second half of the year in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi. What do you
You
think?
say Gucci. That's Kikuchi's an interesting one. I think because he dropped his curveball after the trade from Toronto to Houston, and it just I mean it was like a whole different pitcher. Let's look at his splits here. I mean before the trade, 4.75 ERA through 115 innings, averaging 10.1 strikeouts per nine, and then after that. 2.7 ERA through 60 innings with an 11.4 strikeouts per nine. I mean, he's allowing 3.5 less hits per inning. Like it's a totally different pitcher. Like
Yeah,
that's you got to look at him in a different way, which is crazy to say for a now 34-year-old pitcher. Like, well, going into his 34-year-old season.
hmm hmm. And where do you think he's gonna be attracted?
I it's crazy that these guys are back to back, but I also have him going to the New York Mets. I think for all the reasons that I just said, I think they're going to get multiple pitchers, and if they don't have Severino and Mania coming back, they've got probably 3 or 4 rotation spots that are just kind of open. And I think you say Kikuchi is a guy who, I mean, you saw him pitch in Houston, which is a big environment. He made a change, and I think you can get him cheaper than some of the bigger options. Where if you do go a Corbin Burns, then maybe you can't afford that next tier of kind of Jack Flaherty or any of those guys that might
Yeah,
require a long term contract. Because I think Kikuchi you could probably get. I mean, he's 34, like I said, so 2 or 3 year deal, maybe 3 for 45, maybe even less. I mean, I don't know. He has a short run of success, but I think he could be a key piece for that Mets team that wants to win now.
yeah. I definitely I think he's gonna get the eyes of the big market teams. He's just a very dependable pitcher, having that veteran presence. And I also have him going to New York. but I have him going to the New York Yankees. I think that after this, after their pitching staff blew it a bit in the World Series, they're gonna want the guy you say who maybe in the playoffs he's coming out of the bullpen, but throughout the entire regular season he's gonna be a dependable starter. And the Yankees have all the money in the world, and he's just kind of in that perfect spot where they're not gonna be. They can sign Soto and they can sign him without feeling like they're spending too much, and I think they're gonna do.
I think that's interesting. The one thing I'll say is the Yankees. I feel like they, and not that they don't do it because they do, and but they struggle when they get these kind of middling guys. The expectations of pitching in not just New York, but it's just the Yankees specifically is so weird. Like I just like Marcus Stroman goes there and it's like he's almost an afterthought in this rotation where it's like he's now on this bubble because like you think about it, right? They've got Cole, Schmidt, um,
Nestor.
you've got Rodon and who was the last one you said?
I said Nestor.
No, not there's another one. Wait. Who am I thinking
Poteet.
of? No, shut up. It's good pitcher. Heel.
Teal.
Poteet. Um, no. So it's like if you're looking at that four of Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, Heel, right? I feel like Stroman can be that five swing man, the way you don't really need a Kikuchi. And if you're gonna sign a fifth guy, it better be a guy who's like, I'm putting my name on it that I'm better than Marcus Stroman, you know?
Hmm.
So that would be my only thing. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I get your point.
okay. Up next, Teoscar Hernandez. Home runs in the playoffs, home run in the World Series. Said he wants to come back, but will he? I
Send him
have him
back.
coming back. I don't know about you. Yeah, I
I have him
think
going back too. I think that
we've got a lot of guys that we just have a similar opinion on, and it's pretty similarly when they're just guys who are. It makes sense to come back, like with Soto and with Teo and guys like that. It just he fits in this lineup. He wants to be there. They want to have him. I don't think he's gonna cost this exorbitant price that maybe you would
Mhm.
expect of a two-time All-Star and a home run derby champion, just because he is kind of seen as one of many in that lineup. But it's so much better for him where you go from Seattle where you have no lineup protection to LA where you have the most lineup protection in the league, and it's like look at the difference in those numbers. Like it's insane. Not to say that we weren't expecting a bounce back with how good his numbers were in Toronto, but he seemed to find something in LA, and I think it's a no brainer for him to come back.
Yeah. I I I mean I wrote it down too. I fully agree with you. I think that Dave Roberts would be an idiot to not re-sign Teoscar Hernandez because he slotted so well into the culture that they had this year. He had I mean we knew Teoscar Hernandez was a great player before this year, but he had even a better season than we really could have expected this year. Won the home run derby. He had big clutch hits in the playoffs, and I think that he's just a perfect guy for LA, and they should spend the money to keep him.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll be too much. I mean, he doesn't provide over. I mean, despite I know he threw out Stanton in the playoffs, but his defensive value is not immense. And like I said, I think he has more of a market in LA than he does with some other teams. The next guy, bit controversial, but Max Fried had up and down season. It seems crazy to me that he ended with a 3.25 ERA because it's like once a month I look and he has given up 7 runs to the Marlins or something. And then the next 3 starts, I guess, were shutouts. I don't know. But it was kind of a bumpy season. And with after the injury, I mean, we kind of expected, but it's nice to see him finish with 175 innings and 3.25 ERA. Well, it's higher than it has been over the past few years. I mean,
Hmm.
it's still elite.
Yeah, I mean he has this year. I had him for a little bit in one of my fantasy leagues, and he was definitely the guy where he would go on these stretches of just dominance, and then have two starts where he just looks like terrible. But he would flip flop between those. But Max Fried is in essence a really good pitcher, and I think he has been on this Braves team for his entire career, and he's been here as they look like they're going to win every year and then don't. And obviously the World Series year where they didn't look like they were going to win and they did. And I think now he's just going to take his money and run. So I have him going to Los Angeles Angels, which may I did put this down before Hendricks, but I don't think Kyle Hendricks is gonna change anything if someone is gonna get a Max Fried type. And
Yeah, I mean, Harvard Westlake kid, LA, coming home. I can see it. I mean, Angels like to throw money around, and I
mhm,
would say it doesn't make any sense, but like I said, like the Angels don't make any sense. So
yeah,
it's kind of
and
like they might as well go get him,
they think they need pitching this year, they go get pitching, and that's kind
which
of
they have
Angels thing.
never done in the past. They've always needed pitching. They've never gotten pitching. I think the last time they got pitching was CJ Wilson. Like
Well,
Uh, I have Max Fried going to the Boston Red Sox, and I actually had this before. They came out today and said they want to get some big name, big target guys, but I think Fried's a good fit in Boston. I like the idea that they're getting their revenge on the Chris Sale trade. You know, lefty comes down for almost nothing, wins Cy Young after all the Boston fans were hating him for so many years, and then now Fried, I think he's going to come back and have a great bounce back year with Boston.
mhm,
I think. I mean, with what they've got going on with their big four and prospects, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, Kyle Teal, Christian Campbell. I mean, you don't really have to worry about a whole lot of hitting slots. I think more than anything, you could see them trade some guys like a Yoshida or maybe even a Wilyer Abreu if
yeah,
they get kind of crazy, even though he had a great rookie season. And kind of pick up some pitching like this and some bullpen help. And I think Max Fried could kind of be that solid headliner where it's a big name to fetch the fans' attention.
yeah. I think Boston they spend money. They came out and said it, and I think he'd fit there as
Yeah,
well
I
as
mean,
he
I
can.
was gonna look. The Angels, I would check their pitching staff. They really have nothing to speak of right now. But to be fair, kind of the same with Boston. I mean, you look, it's probably Houck and Bayo are the only guys that are 100% assured to have a
Yeah.
spot. Cutter Crawford, I think 99% will opening day. But if they happen to fall into three guys that are better, you're not going to say no, one of those things. Um, but I do think that Max Fried can help them out a lot. And all those guys are righties too, which I found very interesting. If you look at their pitching staff, it's Brennan Bernardino is the only lefty pitcher in their entire staff as
Wow.
it stands. So Fried could bring some diversity there,
Yeah.
which is nice. Obviously, you don't really want that with the Green Monster. You want a lot of righties so that they have to have lefties in, but uh, regardless.
Yeah.
Who is up next?
Next, we've got Tony Taters, Anthony Santander had a really
Anthony
good year.
Santander, switch hitter who can hit 40 bombs.
Yeah,
I
you've
mean,
seen it.
awesome. Okay, so yeah, you see his numbers right here. Not to say he had a huge breakout season this year, but it felt like with the Orioles being so much better than they typically are, it kind of felt like his name was more mainstream than it has been typically. You know, like
Yeah.
he became more less one of the Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, and then it was like, okay, who do they got? It's Gunner and it's Santander and it's Rushman. Like these are the guys. This is Murderers Row.
Yeah. I mean, I think this year he just kind of reinforced. I mean, what did he have? 29 2 years ago. I think
He
this
had,
year,
yeah, he had 30. You can see, yeah, he had 33, then 28, 44. So, I mean, he's been pretty consistent, but this year was a step up.
yeah, that's. I think now he's just a big enough name. And on the topic of big names, I have him going to your Boston Red Sox. I think that
Well, let's take a look. We've already got the Boston Red Sox depth chart up,
I
so we
think
can.
with the loss of Tyler O'Neill in free agency, either they would re-sign him or they would go out and get somebody who would slot in there and be that same power hitting bat. And I think Santander in Boston would be a great fit because he can switch hit, and that's such a hitter friendly ballpark that I think he could maintain a very very high home run count for the next few years, and Boston would just facilitate that. So I really like the idea of Santander in a Red Sox
Yeah,
uniform.
I like Santander there. I mean, I do think I mean, it's a good ballpark to hit a lot of home runs. He's a power hitter. I just think it's one of those things where they wouldn't. I don't know if they'd be willing to pay as much for his switch hitting services as other teams might because they have so many lefties in the order right now. I think you're going to see them get a lot of righties and try and pull the ball over Fenway, or not have Fenway over the Green Monster, because they can't really capitalize on that right now with Yoshida and Abreu and even the guys coming up. It's Roman Anthony, lefty, Teal, lefty, Meyer, lefty. Like, okay, that's enough. Like, give me a Christian Campbell in there. But I mean, Santander, right, switch hitter. So it's half a problem. I don't know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah,
I've got Santander going to the Royals. I think I just they have no pop. They were so inconsistent this year. And especially the Royals have such a weird lineup because their best hitters, in my opinion, are in the spots that are hardest to get good hitters, right? Like they've got Witt at short, they've got Massey at second, they've got Salvi at catcher, right? Like those
hmm
are tough positions to have good hitters. And those are their best hitters. Like give me a left fielder, give me a DH, give me a third baseman who can hit, like something. And I just think Santander being in the lineup every day, switch hitter, he can be that solid four hitter and push, Salvi and Vinny around in the lineup where it gets that lineup a little bit longer and it doesn't feel so much like Witt is the only guy when Vinny might not be succeeding like he was at the start of the year. I know he picked it up a lot at the end, but he had some struggles.
yeah, definitely. I mean, Vinny ended the year off strong, but that doesn't discount the fact that he did have that cold stretch, and that
Yeah, and I mean it's just like you saw with this lineup. I mean they had some crazy home road splits, which I can look it up right now, but they it was like some stat where they had go let's go baseball. Why did it go depth chart? Like their team OPS was a good bit higher at home than it was on the road, and it kind of showed in their wins and losses. Let's see. Yikes! This needs to be easier to find. Well, whatever. You're gonna have to take my word for it.
yeah.
Okay, who's up next?
Next we've got Jack Flaherty. And I mean,
Jack
interesting
Flaherty.
year from Jack Flaherty because he did have those few blowups in the postseason, but then he had lights out in the postseason. And I mean, what did he end the year
I
with?
mean, and yeah, you could say like it was just a weird year because it felt like he was pitching really well on the Dodgers during the regular season down the stretch, and then I look at his numbers, and it's like, okay, yeah, he had a 3.58, 55 innings, like that's fine, and like you said, like his numbers in the playoffs weren't great in the end, like okay, what are we 8.1 ERA? Like, is that a good season? And that's kind of the question that I keep having. Like, was that a good season? And with how good his numbers were in Detroit, I think just no brainer, send him back to Detroit. Like they need pitching. I think you saw them funnel through Skubal, Kiter Montero, and then a bunch of openers this year. And I think you will see a little less of that because they'll call Job up, and they have obviously Casey Mize and Reese Olson and Sawyer Gibson Long eventually. But I do think that Jack Flaherty, I mean, he showed he could be a really good pitcher there and a great complimentary number two. And if Job steps up, then he can be an elite number three, where your rotation starts looking more on par with the team that he was on, the Dodgers. You know, like Flaherty stepped up into the Dodgers, and yeah, I know he started game one in the World Series and all that, but
Yeah.
he was really like their third or fourth starter. And I think that's what you're striving for if you're the Tigers.
Yeah. I mean, it's undoubtable to say that look at his season in Detroit and say he shouldn't be there, but I think I'm taking to heart his own words where he said he would do anything to stay a Dodger, and I'm going to keep him with the Dodgers. I think that, I mean, he grew up a Dodgers fan. He had, obviously, at the end of the year, his stats on the Dodgers didn't look great, but they still had the faith in him. He started game one of the World Series. I mean, they like him. He wants to stay there, and I think he's willing to make it work with Dave Roberts as far as the contract goes, such that he's allowed, like he gets to stay in Los Angeles. I think he's gonna.
There is so many guys. There are
There are a lot.
so many guys.
No, there are a lot.
Like more guys than I think anyone even realizes. Like, I mean, you're talking. We're looking at it here, and it's okay. Yamamoto, Otani, Glasnow, Gonsolin, May, and it's like that's just those guys. Sheehan should be back. Stone will be back. Hurt if
Hmm.
they don't put him in the bullpen. Like, and then you go down to the minor league system, and they've got it more good guys like Frosso and Robleski. We saw Kasparius pitch out of the pen, but he was pretty good down the stretch and in the playoffs. Like Landon Knack was pretty good this year. Bobby Miller has shown that he can be elite. Ferris is in the next year. I mean, I think it's as likely as anything else. I almost put him to the Dodgers. I mean, from LA, it makes a lot of sense. They just won the World Series. If they offer him a contract, I think he's skipping home with it.
Yeah,
There's just a part of me that's like, okay, like, can I picture that? You know, can I picture another Dodgers starter there? And probably yes, because they get everyone. But
yeah.
still, okay.
All right.
Who is up
Next we've
next?
got Carlos Santana.
A little bit
He,
more under the
I
radar.
mean, 38 years old, but had a great year. Like, I don't know
Let's
the number
see.
off the top of my head, but he had some really nice counting stats. And I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean he was a solid 10% above league average hitter, but that Gold Glove, I mean, did not see that coming. His first Gold Glove at 38 in Minnesota. I'm gonna
yeah.
be honest.
And I mean, I think that he would fit perfect in a team that really just needs like a spackle hole fixer at first base, and that's the Houston Astros. I think that he can just fix that gap that they've got, and I don't, and they're not gonna have to pay him all that much because of the age, and then they can figure something else out. I think that they just kind of right now they want to fill that hole for the next season and not worry about it, and I think Carlos Santana is that guy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And looking at his splits here, it makes a lot of sense against lefties. Look at those splits. Hitting from the right side of the plate, he has a 934 OPS. Hitting from the left side of the plate, he's 676. And you're talking about the Crawford boxes out there. That's only going
Hmm.
to inflate, right? Like that's one of those numbers where you're like, okay, just take your walks on the left side, and then we'll make it count on the right. I have him going a little bit of a different route, but I do still like that. I have him in Texas. I think Nate Lau is going to get traded. So I do think it would make sense for him to just kind of fill a role there where he can be a good defender and be kind of the sixth, seventh guy in that lineup where you're looking. Here, I'll pull up their depth chart right now, but they have Simeon, Seager, Langford, Garcia, Young, Smith, Heim, Carter. Like he's kind of one of those guys and could easily slot in 6th through 8th in that lineup and still be a really productive player for,
Yeah.
I mean, cheap. And it's a team. They're one of the Texas is one of the teams that's going through the whole RSN Sports the video contract. So they're a little cash strapped. So we're going to see them. That's probably why Garcia and Lau are on their way out of town.
Yeah, I see that. I think
Okay, next
moving
one
on
up, Christian
quickly.
Walker.
Christian Waka, and that accent right there. I think he's gonna go to the Mets. I mean, I think this is definitely tied up with where Pete goes, but I think Christian Walker is that slightly cheaper guy that no one really realizes how good he is. You know,
I mean, he's just a perennial Gold Glover, as you can see here. I mean, 3 straight years, like
he's
with an 800 OPS
yeah,
and a
Gold
Gold
Glover,
Glove.
800 OPS. What else do
Yeah.
you need from a first baseman? I think Christian Walker is that guy, and people are gonna Mets fans are gonna love him when he gets there. And I think I can just I can picture him being just that same guy for a bigger team, and I think it works with the Mets.
So I'm curious, how much less do you think Christian Walker is going to get than Pete Alonso? Do you think it's going to be significant? How old is Pete Alonso?
Pete Alonso's 29.
He's 29. Okay, so it's going to be a lot less.
It's going to be a lot
because Walker's 33. Yeah, 33. He'll be almost 34 next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a big money saver, and Pete's really good, but I think Walker is also a very good option at first, and I think they're gonna want to go out and spend their money on other ventures.
Yeah, I there's a clear like first base carousel, which is really interesting just because it's such a good hitting position and these elite teams need it. You know, like the Mets will likely need, with Alonso gone, the Mets will need one, the Yankees will need one. With Walker leaving, the Diamondbacks will need one. And the team that I have Walker going to, the Astros, have been needing a first baseman. I mean, they tried to fill it with Jose Abreu and it didn't work. But I like the idea that it's Christian Walker. He's a righty, you know. He can smash it down into the Crawford boxes. He can get it going. I didn't actually look. I'd be curious to see if his baseball savant page shows that he pulls balls or not. But I just think it's going to be it's a good fit, and they've been letting so many guys walk in free agency. They've got a little bit of money to play with. Yeah, I mean, look at that. All his home runs. I mean, those are Crawford box specials. That's a pull hitter right there. And great defender at first. I just think he's well rounded. Astros need a guy like that. Can't ask for more. Choosing not to overthink this one. Astros have been cheap with first base, and now they're gonna finally cash it in.
Get their guy. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right.
Who's up?
Jose Iglesias.
OMG.
Oh my God. Mets all the way.
I said
after this year, I can't imagine him going anywhere else. And I think he'll just write out the rest of his career in New York.
I like that.
Yeah, he's 38.
Think you said that succinctly. You go. Like
yeah, he's 38. He had a big career just down after the Tigers. And then this year, well, I mean, I know his numbers were just crazy at the end because he wasn't qualified. But I mean, he had a career renaissance this year, and I don't see why they should change anything.
I like it. Tyler O'Neill.
I have him going to Cincinnati. I think with Santander going to Boston in my prediction, I think that they're not going to need him, and I think that Cincinnati can always use another power hitter in that lineup.
Where do you have him fitting into that Cincinnati lineup? I'm curious.
I was kind of just thinking he'd take
Do
up.
you? I'm just curious because like, do you have them trading India and then kind of a DH situation, or is it more like a instead of Will Benson or
It was more like
Spencer
a.
Steer floating?
It was more like an instead of Will Benson. Like
Okay,
I think
kind of a
that
like.
yeah, you want to bolster up that outfield, and I think Will Benson is a great like first bench guy. But I think
Yeah,
if the
because
Reds
here
want to,
on Fangraphs they have it's Benson and Fraley platoon and right, and then
mhm,
Steer and left with Fairchild too.
yeah, I just think that they really could use another power bat in the lineup, and Tyler O'Neill is really good.
I mean, Tyler O'Neill might hit 40 bombs there in
Yeah.
the Great American Small Park. Like,
hmm where do you
I
think he
have
goes?
him staying in Boston. Much less exciting. I just think, and I become obsessed with Green Monster smash righties in there, but it infuriates me that all the Red Sox prospects are all lefties, and so I need to make up for that by putting as many free agent righty hulking sluggers there as I possibly can. So that's as much explanation as needed.
hmm
For the same reason that they signed him and had him on the team last year is why they will sign him again this year. I just think, like you said, with the Santander thing, they've got a hole there. I think it makes sense. Like you got a big power hitter, that lineup needs it. They've got guys who can play defense and play other positions. Tyler O'Neill, if they trade Yoshida, can kind of chill out in the DH spot, fill in at left field, learn how to play it off the monster, and it's not too much running. Like it's a small left field once you learn how to play the carom.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
Heaney
Andrew Heaney, I mean, he had what were his numbers this year? I feel like I
four
heard
two
about them,
eight
but
one
yeah,
sixty.
he was good. Andrew Heaney season. Um, I just had him. I think he's gonna be pretty cheap, but he's still like a decent, dependable pitcher. And with the Cardinals clearing house this offseason, I think he'll be cheap enough to just anchor down that rotation. Because
I
I
like
think,
it. I like him for like a two for like 24 or something, or
mhm,
like 2 for 20. I mean, he's in his mid 30s. I like that. Cardinals who said they were gonna lower payroll.
yeah, I mean, I think it's simple as that. They're just gonna pay him a little bit and call it a day. And I think they're
Yeah,
gonna
we
draft.
I have a little beef with Andrew Heaney because we did the Sporkle quiz that was all the starting rotations in baseball, and we got him eventually. But I swear we had every other starter in the entire league except Andrew Heaney for about 5 minutes at the end there, and it's like when you lost the last puzzle piece at the bottom of the box, and you're like looking under the couch and the carpet and all that. Drives me insane. Okay, sorry, bagging on Andrew Heaney. I'm going to the Cubs. Not super exciting. I just think he's going to be, like you said, depth arm. Maybe. I mean, we saw him kind of be a different guy for the Dodgers a few years ago. So if some team can tap into that, maybe in shorter spurts where he had that like you see here, this 13.6 strikeout per nine was just kind of totally unheard of in his career. So if he can tap into that, that would be awesome. But it looks like his stuff is kind of diminished in age, and he's thrown 160 innings. I don't know how many bullets he's got left. He wasn't pitching a whole lot of high leverage innings in his
hmm
prime.
Yeah,
Okay, Luis Severino. We're into those Mets starters.
Sevy had a year this year. I mean, him and Manaya, we've got them back to back right here, so I feel like I can talk about them both at the same time.
Very fair.
I
They're
mean,
they're in similar boats. Like
yeah, and I mean, I think Sevy, he had a great year, but I think out of those two, if I were the Mets, I would focus on Manaya, and Severino would be like, if you extend him an offer, and when he deserves more, because he probably deserves more than whatever that would be, I think you focus that money on Manaya. Obviously, I think both of them are great candidates for re-signing, but I have Sevy going to the Cubs. I think they need an arm, and he had a great year this year. Simple enough.
I like that. I have him going to the Angels. I just think for similar reasons as you had Freed going there. I think they are going to pick up one or two kind of maybe not veteran arms, but like in their 30 to 33-year-old seasons, kind of trying to capitalize on something that happened more recently and get him a little cheaper. But I do think, I think Severino's going to get like a solid 4 for 110, 5 for 110, or maybe 4 for 90, 95, 5 for 110, 115. I think he's earned that 20+ million a year paycheck, especially. You see Waka out here getting 3 for 54, whatever he got with a 17 AAV. Like that's, I mean, Michael Waka. Luis Severino, I would like to think is better than that, and he's younger still. So, um, I do think that he should get some money. I had him going to the Angels, and should I just go into Manaea?
Yeah, just go straight into Manaea.
Okay, I'll pull up his numbers. Manaea, I speak a little more firsthand on Manaea, watching him as an A's fan. I could not get over that the Giants were just using him out of the pen last year. I loved Manaea. I've got him going to the Royals here. Actually, the team that he was from, he was originally acquired by the A's. Ben Zobrist for Sean Manaea straight up at the deadline. So he'll be returning home. I think he had a good career renaissance kind of in New York, showed that he can pitch in high leverage games and throw some postseason innings. And for a team that the Royals, they're kind of like, they've got a good rotation. Reagan's, Lugo, now you throw Waka in there. Hopefully Brady Singer can keep that up. And Alec Marsh looked good at the end of the season. But, you don't have a lot in the way of prospects, and I don't imagine they're going to spend all that big. So if you can pick up a Manaea and kind of round it out, and then you don't need Alec Marsh to be really good, or you don't need 35-year-old Seth Lugo to have a sub-3 ERA again, that just, it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, Manaea, I just have him. Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, you said you had him staying.
Yeah, I have him staying. Simple enough. I think he had such a good year this year. I love watching his overlays with Sale, and there's a lot of clips on the internet of him throwing bullpen where he's throwing to the next mound over just to get the sweep all the way across.
Just to get the wiffle ball movement.
Yeah, and I think that whatever's going on there with Sean Manaea is working, and he should stay there.
Sweet. Okay, we've got Alonso up next, which is a big one, but I just want to make sure, is there like a timer on the recording for you?
Yeah, it's at 52 minutes.
But like, what is there like a limit?
No.
Okay, perfect. Because at some point the meet will probably kick us out and we can just hop on a new one, but as long as the recording's good. Okay, Pete Alonso, New York Yankee.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Especially, we knew that the Rizzo option decline was coming, and he just did not look good this year. Simple
Which
enough.
Did you see what the Rizzo option decline meant?
No.
It's pretty hilarious. It was a $7 million option with a $6 million buyout. That's how badly they didn't want Anthony Rizzo on their team. He's not even going to make $6 million with another team.
No.
They're basically like, we would rather save $1 million than have to watch him suit up in a Yankees uniform every day this year. Like, he's done.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny. But
I think Polar Pete in staying in New York, going to the Yankees, I think that it just works too well. They need a first baseman. He lives in New York, and he's expensive, and they've got money. And enough said.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be one of the situations where it's like, okay, why don't the Mets sign him? Kind of a similar, like, Yankees, Soto, bird in the hand. Like, you've got a rich team with a rich player. But I have the Mets going kind of a little bit more in on pitching this offseason. I think they've kind of seen what Lindor and Alonso and this kind of hitting oriented offense like team can do, and it's not a championship. So I think that their money is going to have to get reallocated a little bit away from first base, and especially Pete has not been this like crazy hitter. This year his numbers were worse than Christian Walker's, and he is not winning Gold Gloves. Like I get that he hit more home runs, but I mean he even had a lower OPS. So it's kind of like how much is name value, how much would you have to pay for him to stay in New York? It's just it feels like a lot, and they're probably going to take some flack with him walking. But I think it means more for the Yankees to steal him from the Mets and for their fans to think, okay, like we got him, like he's the thing that's going to put us over, and they're going to be willing to spend more than that than the player that he actually is, and that's going to end up him not being on the Mets. That's what I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
All right, next.
okay, sorry, that
Nick,
was a long-winded response,
a
but
little a
I
little
was.
Nick Pavetta. Um, he had a.
Did you not want to do Hoffman?
I mean, we're at 55 minutes, and
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I
I
mean,
get it.
if I kind of read it out. If you look down, I read it out a lot ago.
No, I agree. We can just show. I'll show my whole roster at the end, and I can just go over, and then you can just say your pick as I talk about them or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
just
I'll just be like, oh, like this guy ended up here, and you're like, oh, this is another op. He might have gone here, like something
yeah,
like that.
rapid
Okay,
fire.
sorry.
Uh,
Pick that.
Pavetta, I have him going to the Blue Jays. I think he's cheap enough. He had a good year, and they like their good rotation. And this year they were not good. So I think a Gossman bounce back season is going to happen, and I think Pavetta would just play in nicely to what they've got going.
I really like that pick, honestly. I hadn't seen your pick for that or anything, and I'm kind of jealous. It's kind of a not like exactly like the Kikuchi signing, but like the Kikuchi signing last year, where it's like it's a guy who it's always been like, okay, when is he going to put together this great season, right? Like you see a guy who has the potential to strike out 12 guys per nine and throw 200 innings. And like, I mean, as an A's fan, I've watched Nick Pavetta just
Oh
absolutely
my
grill
God.
us over some coals. But you also see these starts and really just seasons where it's like mid fours ERA. He's walking almost four guys per nine. But I mean, this year you saw 2.2 walks per nine, which was by far a career low. Like, if that's the new norm, I can get used to that. I can get because Pavetta's stuff is disgusting. As long as he can command it and get through innings, he's going to be all right. And so I do like that Toronto. I have him going a little bit of a different route. I've got Pavetta going to Atlanta. I kind of figured Atlanta has really good major league pitching development. And with a guy like Pavetta, like I said, where it just seems like he's waiting to unlock something, he might get there, and it's like, okay, we see something in your rotate, like in your motion, where it's like you're gonna do this one thing, and suddenly I mean, like you said, Kevin Gausman, right? Like when Gausman went to, I mean, let's pull up his numbers. Kevin Gausman, when he went to the Giants, before that, he was a
Yeah.
touted prospect with the Orioles, but he had kind of flamed out of the league. Like he was with the Braves, which not a good example for me saying that Pavetta should go to the Braves, but like he had such a renaissance here and showed what he can do. And I think maybe you could see a similar thing here with Pavetta. They've both got that crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Okay, Kirby Yates.
Kirby Yates. I mean, his numbers this year were nutty. What did he
I
have?
mean, he
One.
talk about a career renaissance. I mean, look at this from 2020 to 2022. Really, I mean, I could include 2023. He pitched in 15 games to a 7.94 ERA. That's 3 seasons. That's not a small like. Granted, it's a small sample size in terms of only 15 games, but and then
Yeah.
last year he showed okay, he can be a guy, but he still walked 5.5 batters per nine. And then I mean, he really got it under control this year. I mean, 3.4 hits per nine innings is ridiculous. All star, shutdown closer. I mean, the Rangers needed him bad. Like, if he was this last year, I think more people would have attributed his performance to their World Series and he would have gotten a bag. But
Yeah.
unfortunately for him, it's after their kind of down year.
Yeah. They wasted a really good year
No
from him.
kidding. I mean, I have him coming back. That was a long-winded way to say they need to not waste him. God.
I I have him. I have him going back. I believe back to the New York Yankees because I
Back.
Was he not on the Yankees?
Oh yeah, wow, that was a call. 2016 for a
Oh
season.
well,
I didn't know that.
I a little bit of immaculate group there. No, but I mean they're gonna go out and pay a lot of relievers this year, and with the year that he had, I think he is gonna make something. And I don't really see with relievers, there's never really like a perfect team. I think that it's very likely that he would just go to whichever team would pay him, and that's the Yankees. They're gonna spend
And
money.
I really like that just because, and you say there's no perfect team, but I mean, Kirby Yates is clearly a guy, he's a veteran. Like, he is all right with the big moment, like he's all
Mhm.
right being the closer. He led the league in saves with the Padres. He's played in New York. He's played in LA. He's played in Tampa. He's played in these places. He's been an all-star, been around, done that. So I think him over re-signing a guy like Clay Holmes, who has shown clearly that he just can't handle the big moment,
Mhm.
especially closing all last season. It was like, I mean, yeah, his ERA ended up fine and his metrics are great, but in the big moment, he blows the save. Like that.
Yeah.
There is some human aspect to this, and Kirby Yates has it. So I do like the Yankees. If not going back to the Rangers, it's going to be one of those big market teams who is competing: Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, one of those guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Blake Snell. That's a
Blake
fun
Snell.
one.
I mean, Blake Snell is
I
he's
see we have him going to the same place, so I will let you
yeah,
intro.
that was a later amendment. Um, for me, I think that when you talk about Blake Snell, you talk about a 2 year deal. You don't think of Blake Snell as a guy who's going to stick around for the long term deals, and that's the Padres. They get guys for a few years and then let them go. And obviously, if we're looking at last year, he won a Cy Young there, and I think it's just perfect fit. Musgrove's out for the entirety of next year, so I think they're gonna need someone to plug that gap for him, and no one better than Blake Snell.
Yeah, I was looking for the quote because I was literally just reading that it was like Scott Boras at the winter meetings, and he was talking about Blake Snell, and he's like, the Snelling salts are around or something, like people are asking about him, and I thought that was funny. But I just, yeah, here it was. But Boris's quote: "The Snelling salts have created a lot of whiffs. The market has definitely awakened to Blake Snell." So he's going to get some money, and the disrespect that he saw last year, I think, will be a little dissipated. I think you're going to see him more in the range of probably what Verlander and Scherzer got when they were in those big free agencies where they went to the Mets.
Hmm.
Kind of a three where he's getting $40+ million a year. Capitalize on those. I mean, he's still only, it's not like he's 34 or something. He's going to turn 32 in a month, right? So maybe he gets a 5 year deal. Like,
Hmm.
Garrett Cole is what, 34? And he
Yeah.
just got a 5 year extension. And Snell's not Garrett Cole. And maybe that's an unfair thing to say because Snell has one more Cy Young than him. But it just is the truth. And everyone's been scared of him, scared to sign him to a long year deal his whole career. So I think the Padres will be willing to take the most of a gamble because I think Preller is more assured in himself that he can trade him away when he's just done.
Hmm.
Preller will just cut ties where other teams they get a little more iffy on laying down the money and then being forced to cut their losses.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Next we've got
Glaber.
Gleyber Torres. I mean, I think overall he was like a league average hitter this year, maybe slightly above.
Yes, unfortunately for him and his money making capabilities.
Yeah, and because he's not going to be making a ton of money, I have him going to the Seattle Mariners. I think that what we saw from them this year is just they need hitting. They've got lights out pitching, and they're in a pitching friendly ballpark. But outside of their future with J Rod, I mean, and I guess Big Dumper, look at that lineup and tell me there's anyone who you wouldn't replace if you had a lot of money. You know?
No, that's it's very true. I was just gonna say they deserve it because they have had zero luck with second baseman. The first one they tried to sign, Colton Wong, right? His whole career been a very consistent hitter, league average, slightly above. He comes to Seattle and has one of the worst 60 game stretches I've ever seen.
Yeah.
468 OPS. He was 65% worse than league average. He hit 165. I mean, he was terrible, just basically unplayable. And then they signed Jorge Polanco this offseason. Jorge Polanco's supposed to be a great hitter. He's been killing it in Minnesota. I mean, this is a 15, 25% better than league average hitter. This year, 10% below. He's hitting 213. He's not worth the money, and they have to let him go. So for their sake, yes, I hope Glaber goes there, and I hope he kills it.
Yeah.
I have Glaber going to the Giants. I think the Giants they're in the market for infielders and just big impact bats. I think that he's going to be a little bit cheaper than he probably would have been in other years, and the Giants can kind of see him as a bigger name and capitalize on that, where other teams might not be able to, might not be willing to pay him as much given his whatever 713. No, not even. Oh, this is Polanco. I was going to say, I think he had like a 710, 714, 7 something, 709, something around there. OPS this year. So he's not going to be making the big bucks, but I could see like a prove it maybe 1 year, 20 million. Like kind of what Simeon got after leaving the A's, if that makes sense. Like, I'm trying to remember what Simeon got to go to the Blue Jays. I think it was 1 year, 23 or something.
And then he
had whatever his second top 3 MVP season and made a bag with Texas. But I could see a similar thing where he just wants to show that he can be that player that he was in 22 and 23, where he was 3+ WAR and all that. I mean, even before that, I mean, look at this. His hitting, I mean, plus 800 plus OPSs. What happened?
I mean, remember he was third in Rookie of the Year behind Shohei Ohtani and Miguel Andujar.
Andujar, A's legend. Okay.
Tanner Scott.
Ooh, Tanner Scott.
Really good season. We know Tanner Scott is a closer. Like, he has it in him. He has the big moments.
Mm-hmm.
He's had multiple big save seasons. He was great on the Padres. He's just going to go to a bullpen needy team. I have him going to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think that when you look at their bullpen this year, it was decent, but it didn't. There was nothing good about Toronto this year, and the bullpen is no exception. And I think that if they can add that big back end of the bullpen guy like Tanner Scott, it'd really make that lineup look a lot nicer.
Yeah, I like that. I do agree. I have the Blue Jays kind of pushing in a little the chips. I think there could be 2 ways this offseason goes for them, where with Bichette and Guerrero, if Guerrero doesn't get the extension and Bichette ends up getting traded, you could see maybe guys like Gosman and Bassett kind of get moved on. But I think with how many veterans they have there, it doesn't make sense to do that. I think they're gonna push in the chips more likely than take them out. So I just, especially with, and Ross Adkins is going to get fired if they rebuild for 2 more seasons. So, Tanner Scott, I have him going Boston. Like I said before with Max Fried, I just think, I mean, you've got one lefty in the whole staff. Green Monster, whatever, you need lefties. It's going to happen. You're going to be facing, especially if Juan Soto signs with the Yankees, you need a lefty to get him out in the back at the end of the game. Like, he's dominant, and as far as they go, he's just on another level of lefty relievers in the open market right now. I think Boston's seeing this as an opportunity to gain leverage where they weren't in the Corbin Burns running. They weren't in the Juan Soto running. This is where they can get their advantage in free agency. I can see them putting their money there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Next, we've got another big reliever and a bullpen guy, Carlos Estevez.
Another big breakout.
I mean, big year in LA, gets traded to Philly, and I don't know what his numbers look like, but I feel like I didn't hear anything about him once he got to Philly, so he must have done decent.
He was pretty much. His WHIP wasn't the same as his FIP, but his ERA was solid. I think it's probably a sample size issue, but
and I think I have him staying in Philly. Just they've got Alvarado is kind of not fit to be the closer, and I think if I know they had their whole committee this year with Hoffman and Alvarado, and then at the end Estevez. But I think they could just do with keep Estevez, make him the full time closer, and you're laughing.
So you'd like if you think if the Phillies got him, they wouldn't just keep him in like the rotation with Strom, Alvarado, Kirkring.
No,
They
I
would they
think
would
they
make
should like keep all those guys, and they should be getting save opportunities. But I think that he should be like the guy on top.
primary.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. And I do randomly I noticed they claimed John McMillan off waivers. Fantasy players, pick this guy up. He's a beast. He should have been the Royals closer this year. I don't. I love John McMillan, but tangent. I have Carlos Estevez going to the Reds. I think. I mean, you saw what Alexis Diaz this year. I'll pull up his numbers right now, but I don't know how much longer he looks like he's about to unravel kind of things. Like when you have those non flame throwing closers, look at this. His strikeouts per nine went from 11.5 to 8.8 this season.
yeesh.
I don't know what happened, but there's either they're figuring him out or his stuff isn't playing to that level, but it's just something's not clicking right. He's not that dominant closer. I mean, that you would want. So I just think you can have Diaz, you can have Cruz, you can have Pagan, but they're not going to be closers. And especially if you want to take that next step for a young team and get to the playoffs, a guy like Estevez could go a long way. He pitched in the playoffs with the Phillies. One of those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Paulie Goldschmidt.
I for Goldschmidt, I did a fun little storyline thing. I have him going back to his Arizona Diamondbacks just to
I
round out
like
the
it.
career. I think it would just be the perfect way to end it off. What is he now? 36,
Yeah, if you look on there, he's 30, 37.
37. Yeah. I mean, I think it's he this year we really saw the beginning of the end for Goldschmidt, and
Well, I mean, if you told me that Paul Goldschmidt won an MVP 2 years ago, I'd say slap me in the face. You're lying. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what's going on. So
So I
I
think
definitely think it's a career. He'll be needing a career renaissance.
mhm. So but I think he's got to just get back to where it all started, and maybe come back, maybe retire.
Yeah, I think again the Cardinals being not good this year. It's hard to tell how much of this was just an old guy being like, I'm just not going to put in maximum effort 162 games because we're 20 games out of the playoff race and it doesn't really matter. And it's like you have a guy who's been consistent gold glover, elite bat through his whole career. Like maybe he's still got something in there, which is why I'm holding out hope. But we have seen first basemen where when they reach a certain age, it gets really tough. The Votto, the Rizzo, the all these examples of Abreu lately where it's just falling off an absolute cliff. I mean, even Trey Mancini hit like 31 and it was just like, yo. um, but I have Paul Goldschmidt going to Seattle. I think you've got a team who, like you said, they just don't have a lot going for them on offense right now. And so any little boost there could be a big help.
Mhm.
I like Tyler Locklear as a backup. I mean, he's a good prospect. I think maybe he learns something, sits behind him for a year. I don't imagine Paul Goldschmidt is this long-term option for the Mariners. He's not getting more than 1 or 2 years at 37, but I do think he could kind of facilitate a playoff run and do something exciting if he has that career bounce back. And I mean, he still has a good glove. So I mean, T-Mobile Park, you take what you can get.
For sure. All right. Next
Okay,
we've got Quintana. I mean, the third third
Jose.
head third head of that Mets rotation that doesn't he doesn't get quite as much of a spotlight as Mania and Sevi, but I mean he had a really good year. Um, but he is much older, and he's not going to be getting something super long term. So I just had him going to a team that's going to be losing pitching this offseason and is going to need, like, they've got young guys stepping up, but they're going to need a veteran. I'm going to the Rangers.
Okay, I can see that. I didn't go too deep. I could have seen him staying with the Mets, but it's one of those things where I just think that the Mets kind of understand what they had in Sevi, Manaea, and Quintana was not a reliably consistent thing, and they're gonna just be like that was a beautiful thing as it was, and we're gonna let them walk. I haven't gone to the Guardians. I just think as far as if you're a pitcher in the league, and especially a veteran pitcher, you look at what Matt Boyd and God, who was the other guy they brought in? Alex Cobb
Yeah,
halfway through the
God.
season. But it's just like they just can bring guys off the street, and it seems like they're just thriving out there. So if Jose Quintana can have a half decent season, I mean the Guardians are probably going to make the playoffs. It'll be easy paycheck for him and get some wins.
Hmm.
I don't know what he's looking for at this point in his career. I don't imagine it seems tough for him to sign with a team like the Mets or the Yankees and expect to start a playoff game.
Yeah.
Where with the Guardians, you could easily see a Matthew Boyd starting that game 3 because they're kind of forced into it and they don't have like the Yankees are like, oh shit, he'll starting game 4. It's like, okay, feels pretty good. Let's not get out of our shoes here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shane Bieber. Um, his numbers this year look insane because he had just 2 or 3 lights out starts and then went down with TJ.
oh,
But
sorry, I did not. I also did not show the stats for the last guy, but
it's fine.
whatever.
But I think the off season this year is just going to mean that he gets a lesser contract for 1 or 2 years and stays in Cleveland. I can't really see Shane Bieber anywhere else, and I think that with if it weren't for the injury, he would be somewhere else. But with it, I think he stays.
Yeah, I like that. I had him. I almost had him staying. I think it would make sense. I mean, you're talking about a former Cy Young who's just kind of had a tough time with injuries lately and
Hmm.
hasn't looked himself. I mean, he had that. I mean, look at his numbers. His Cy Young season, he struck out 14 batters per nine, and in 2023, he struck out half that. Without even before the injury, he was a shell of himself. So it's kind of one of those things where most teams are going to wonder what is left? What are we getting for our money? And I think the Guardians, like you said, are one of those teams where it's like, okay, we know who he is. We've been following through his rehab. That we like this. We can invest in this future. I also think another team that is rich enough to afford that is the Boston Red Sox. I have him going there, and I just think if him and Freed, like I said, like those two can be the top of a rotation if everything clicks right, and they won't be as expensive as these Snell and Corbin Burns, and even like I mean he's not going to get Flaherty money. He's not going to get like he's just I think he's going to get like a prospective probably 1 or 2 year contract and then try and make his big money once he shows he's got it back. I mean he's only
Hmm.
what he's 30
29.
now. He's 29. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I could even see him being a California guy going to like the Angels or something where you just like I want to be here. I'm just gonna go to some team and pitch and get feeling right again.
Yeah.
So
All right. Kike. I mean, playoffs
who
hero.
needs a playoff hero? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have him going back to the Dodgers on here, but I don't think that that's it. I think in a year he'll be back on the Dodgers, but I think he either signs with them now or he signs somewhere else and then comes back. I think he is just Mr. Dodger, and he's gonna always be one of those back end of the lineup or top of the bench type guys for them. And so I have him staying. But to your point, or to the point of him leaving, I think he would be back.
Yeah, I got him going. I had no idea this was the case, but I'm going to the team that drafted him, Houston Astros. Center field, kind of a need for the Astros. He can also play versatile infield. Jeremy Pena has been,
Yeah.
I don't know, not bad, but not the superstar that we thought he was when he won World Series MVP as a rookie. So I think if they do decide to maybe not move on, but you've got Bryce Matthews there. There's some other plans. Then I think Kike's utility man can provide some
Hmm.
value, and he's good in the playoffs. So
Definitely.
Astros expect to be there. You use the Dodgers weapon against them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okie
Moving on,
doke.
Justin Verlander, 41-year-old Justin Verlander, I believe. I mean, I have him going to the Detroit Tigers. He's
I literally I saw this pick all transparency before this, and I'm very jealous. I think that's a great pick.
I mean, I think that it's just he's old. He's almost done. Go back to where he started, a team that really needs starting pitching. He would still be a part of that rotation, and I think it just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just I mean the Tigers they really need pitching. I could see a big discount and he just kind of goes and plays and hopefully they make the playoffs and he gets to
Hmm.
do it and walk off into the sunset with potentially a Tigers World Series ending it full circle. I mean I could really see that honestly. I have him going to the Baltimore Orioles. Yeah, that's right. I just liked him as he's not going to be as expensive. I mean, I mean what he had 5.8 ERA last season,
Yeah.
but playoff experience and it's like kind of spinning a wheel at that point. Like if you win the lottery and get Cy Young Scherzer at or not Cy Young Scherzer, Cy Young Verlander at 42, then I mean you're probably a World Series favorite. I mean it's just and you can't really say that oh, he can't do that because at 39 he won Cy Young coming off of TJ. Like, who knows? Really? Like, maybe he's cooked, maybe he's not. I want to give him one more season. I don't think it should be too expensive. And the Orioles can kind of they have enough talent on the rest of their roster where they can
Hmm.
sign him prospectively for a few years, maybe even a year, and then if it doesn't work out, it's kind of just like whatever. We cut Craig Kimbrell at the All-Star break, and it's like that's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
And then right after Verlander, we've got Scherzer. Scherzer, I went with the Rangers just because he's already there, but I feel like I could see him going practically anywhere. I mean, I could also see him going to Detroit and do the same thing as Verlander, but to a lesser extent.
he did
But
not start in Detroit either.
and I know he started in Arizona, but he played like those prime years in Detroit.
Yeah.
So that that's just how I think of him.
Yeah, I had him going Giants. Again, like you said, I feel like there's not a particular reason. I think it's going to be Scherzer at this point in his career can probably pick wherever he wants to play, and as long as they have a roster spot that's going to see him pitch every 5 days, then it's fine.
Yeah.
I think the Giants, nice place. They can probably pay him a good chunk of change at the end of his career. They're looking to make the playoffs. I think it's a no-brainer for him, especially I mean, they've got a good ballpark too. So if he does happen to have a solid year of his career, I mean, again, I don't know if he's planning on playing a couple more years or hanging it up after this year and just doing a sentimental year or something like that. So it's more hard to predict because he has so many options. He doesn't need the money or anything. But I think he's gonna make an impact somewhere. I think both of them will.
Yeah. Next we got Paul Sewald, also Kyle Hendricks here. We knew that happened earlier today. He signed with the Angels,
Yeah,
1 year,
I
two
said
and a
I said
half million.
Angeles.
Straight out of the mouth of my good friend who's a Cubs fan, he'll be on the Cubs pitching staff in 3 years. Or pitching staff, like coaching staff. Like he's winding down. He hasn't been good in a few years. But
He's getting ready for a David Ross. Like,
hmm
just go straight from the team.
but Paul Sewald had an interesting season because he lost the closer role for second half of the year,
Yeah, I
and
mean he looks old to me. He looks like
yeah,
not old Paul Sewald. I remember him on the Mariners when he first broke out, and he was so nasty, but he just does not look like that guy anymore.
yeah, and I think he could go anywhere really, but I just put down the Royals because they're a team that could just grab a random reliever, Paul Sewald, he's had high leverage closing experience, but he's kind of past that point. They've got their somewhat closers with Urseg, MacArthur, and I think they could just bolster up that pen a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think he he's really going to go to a team that's willing to risk it a little more. I think it's not going to be one of the teams that's in the market for the Tanner Scotts and those elite bullpen arms. It's a little more of a you want him to return to something that he used to be, not what he was most recently. I am going to Pittsburgh because Chapman was kind of a similar situation last year,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of saw him succeed there, which was nice. And it's a team where they're trying to compete at a young age, but there's not a lot going for them in the bullpen. And so if he's good, he could even be their closer with how bad Bednar was this year. So
Yeah.
you just kind of pull a lottery ticket and hope.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, last
Next,
few.
yeah, Walker Bueller. I mean, I I I find it tough to say because he's said that he wants to be a Dodger, but keep having both him and Flaherty stay with the Dodgers would be tough because they just have so much pitching. And he's gonna be. I would say he was gonna be cheaper, but then that playoffs really showed everyone what he could do, and now he's probably gonna get paid more. Um,
He's a dog. Like at the end of the day, he showed he is a dog, and
for
he's
sure.
gonna. I think he's gonna bounce back, and I think in the playoffs, most teams looked at him and went, "Okay, I think he's gonna bounce back." Like
Yeah,
he's still got it.
definitely. I mean, I think that it's just a matter of uh, like, is he going to be that guy? Is he not? He's going to get the money either way, and some team is willing to do it. I have him going to the Yankees because they like to spend their money on guys who, I mean, I kind of just in my mind they spend a lot of money, so why not?
Yeah, I like that signing. I think I heard you say Yankees a few times for starting pitchers, so I'm a little like I don't know where they're gonna put them all, but
I know. It's just I feel like when I think of the Yankees, I think of a lot of offseason moves, and maybe
yeah,
they trade someone.
I think in the starting pitching category, that's probably one of their strengths at this point. I have Bueller going to the Cubs. I think again, it's one of the few big market teams that can probably still spend on a starter that hasn't gone and gotten a Burns or a Snell or is more interested in trading for somebody. The Cubs, obviously disappointing season. You sign Craig Counsell, poach him from the Brewers, and then don't make the playoffs and lose the division to the Brewers. That's not a great look. So they're going to be looking to make some moves. And Walker Bueller, if everything goes right, could easily be the ace to that staff. Over a Steele and over an Imanaga. So I like that. And again, the downside I don't think is going to be immense because if you sign him to a maybe 4-year, $100 million deal, or add some opt outs or something, and there'll be some sort of clause with injury, I imagine, with his history.
Yeah,
Okay, Travis d'Arnaud. Seems
Darno.
like
I
we
mean,
had similar thoughts.
top catcher on the market this year somehow. I don't see the Braves letting him go. This year really just proved that he's a dependable guy. With Murphy having all the whatever happened with him this year, I mean, I think that they need to have someone there to back him up, and Darno has
Uh
been that.
Drake Baldwin is that dude in Atlanta. I'm gonna say I don't see how maybe they trade Murphy and they re-sign d'Arnaud, but I don't see how you put a 35-year-old d'Arnaud behind the dish instead of major league ready Drake Baldwin. Um, I think d'Arnaud is gonna go to a team that really doesn't need a catcher, just needs a hitter who maybe can fill in every once in a while back there, like more like a Gary Sanchez type. Um, but he has also been not that good lately. I have him going to the Mets. He has been on the Mets in the past. I actually got his autograph when we went to Citi Field. But I just think Francisco Alvarez, young guy, maybe every once in a while he'll fill in. He can DH, put good ABs up. You know what you got there. I don't think he's going to be crazy expensive because again he's been on a league average or below hitter the last few years. So um, I don't know. I don't see him necessarily going to Atlanta. I think it would be tough to fit, especially with catcher. It would be it's just tough. I would see it more if Ozuna hadn't signed because there's nowhere else to go at DH. Like
Yeah.
there's no spot for Darno to hit every day and just
Definitely.
like get ABs. Okay. Evaldi.
Evaldi. I had him going to the Mets. I think that with losing Manaya, Sevi, and Quintana, they could use. Obviously, they've got Sproat coming up. They've got Scott, who is going to be healthy 2 years in 2 years. But I think they can get this. Evaldi's older, but he's not really gone down. He's still a very dependable starting pitcher. He's still very good. I think it just makes sense.
Yeah, I got Baltimore, and it's weird. I'll show. I mean, I'm gonna show my the whole rosters and how they shook out after this, but the Orioles end up with this like weird rotation of guys in mind where they're like kind of all the same. It's like Evaldi and Eflin and like Kikuchi. I don't know. It's just like these like weird late there or no and Verlander and like these like mid-30s consistent like let's just like put these guys out there who are going to be good and then have a great bullpen and a great lineup. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of my plan for them.
Yeah. All right. We're on to the
I will
fun.
say, yeah, we've got two international guys. You can say whatever you want on them. My only thing that I saw in them was I just saw a rumor that said Hai Sung Kim was interested in the Mariners, and I saw Roki Sasaki is likely going to the Dodgers if he comes over.
I
So that's
mean,
what I put.
yeah,
I
Hart.
don't know.
I put the exact same things. I mean, Seattle. They were prior to the Dodgers. They were the team that always got the in the
Well, I
Japanese
mean, yeah,
Korean
it
guys.
was it was always Ichiro was
Hmm.
the big draw. The other guy we have is Ha-Sung Kim. That's the last free agent.
Yeah.
I have him going to the Tigers. I think that's the first signing I've had the Tigers make, and like they have a hole in the middle infield, both at shortstop and at second base. With Keith being, I mean, Keith was good. They don't have a hole at second. I'm being a little annoying because I had Keith for a second on my fantasy team. But I think he fits a good role. He can play good D. He can hit for an average, and you can kind of take some of the pressure off of Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter. And I mean, we just saw in the playoffs that lineup gets short. Like
Definitely.
there, when you have Trey Sweeney hitting 220 and going out there every day, it gets tough.
Yeah, I have him going to Arizona just because I don't. It's not a very far move. They need a shortstop. I just in
But
my mind.
my only thing, Jordan Lawler,
Yeah,
what what is
but
their plan?
but
Because he's in the fall league right now. He's
Hassan
playing.
Hassan King Kim can just play anywhere in my mind in the infield, and I think that
I could see. Can he play third?
probably. I
I
think he
guess I
has
could see him
played
at third. It's just like they have Cattell Marte and they have Lawler.
yeah.
But I guess third and first would be open too. But I don't think you're putting Hassan Kim at first.
No, but
Maybe you put Marte at first, but he plays good D.
well, you might be able to put AU Henning first.
Yeah, you probably could. I imagine. Okay, now we're getting to the fun part. We got some trades.
Oh yes.
Got some trades.
We're starting
Yeah,
off.
we just let's take out. Yeah, don't say. Oh, you already took out a bunch of the ones.
Yeah,
Good.
I did. Don't
Okay,
have
yeah,
the time for all
just keep all the ones. We'll take GM. Oh, I keep accidentally turning the font red instead of the
instead of the highlight.
highlight. Okay,
Okay.
sorry about that.
We'll start out with Mr. Trade Deadline, who didn't end up going at the trade
Yeah,
deadline. Garrett Crochet. I mean, the White Sox, they have been terrible, historically terrible, and he's in his prime. And someone's gonna pay the world for him, and I think that it's gonna be Baltimore. I know you had a lot
and
of.
I think we should do the other person. I'm gonna think about this trade. Just like we haven't looked at each other's trades yet, so I'm gonna be who says no in this offer.
Well,
Hit me with it.
my trade is much more like. Um,
What
just
is it?
an
What's the
ideal.
trade?
It'd be Basayo
Basayo?
because he is blocked
I'll
by
pull up.
App. In my that I mean I know he plays first, but he's blocked by App, and
Yeah, I mean,
it
Basayo, you're talking for people who don't know prospects. I'm a big prospect guy. Basayo's a stud. He's going to
yeah
be, I mean, he's only 20. He had a huge breakout season last year where he went 3 levels and hit the absolute crap out of the ball. Cannon of an arm behind the dish. He's still working on faming and blocking and all that. And it's one of those things where his bat has so outpaced his glove that it's almost pushed him to a level where it's like, okay, now he needs to play first. Like he's so big and he's such a good hitter. He needs to go up and play first right now because he's just not ready to hit. He's not ready to catch yet, but he might be eventually. So I do like that. And it could push, if he doesn't get traded, obviously, it could push a Mountcastle or an O'Hearn kind of trade. But if he does get moved, I like him being a guy because they don't really have a spot for him for Crochet. And then obviously the White Sox are getting a total stud. I mean, you're
yeah
talking about a
and
guy who could work in with Edgar Caro behind the dish and then also
play
be a
first.
platoon with uh, Vaughn at first.
Hmm.
So I think that would definitely be a win-win for them. My move is a big one. I did a lot of combo moves. It's probably unrealistic, but I just want to see it happen. I got Crochet and Lubob to the Giants for
Mm.
Camilo Doval, Walker Martin, Kyle Harrison, and Hayden Birdsong. And
Ooh,
there's not even a lot to look at on the prospect side here because
yeah,
most of those guys are major leaguers. But if you're the White Sox, you're getting two really young starters, right?
yeah.
Birdsong and Harrison are both 22. Like you're getting two guys who have pitched in the major leagues and are proven they were top prospects. You're getting them. Walker Martin, younger guy, right? Basically a first round pick, had a mid season, but they don't have a lot of young prospects. So it's kind
Hmm.
of a like, this is the guy of the younger guys if you're not going to give up Bryce Eldridge, which I was really trying not to. And then I figure Camilo Doval has had such a problem with that coaching staff. Just get him out. Like he's worth so much more to the White Sox at this point than in AAA to you as the Giants. Like even if the White Sox are just going to trade him again, that's fine. And if you're the White Sox, I don't know if you're going to be able to get that much more value. I mean, two like good young starting pitchers are really hard to come by. I think that's probably more than Crochet's worth on his own. And then for Robert, who had a down year, I think the Giants are just like you said. Posey's in there. He's looking to make moves. This is a big splash, and you're giving up a good portion of your team, but you're getting that top end talent.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it for both sides in there because, to your point, Duvall, I think it is definitely a him in San Francisco issue, and I think Lubov has been floundering this year, but I think it's more of a he's on the worst team in the league. He doesn't want to show out his best stuff, you know, and
Yeah, and I could see an argument being the White Sox are picking up too many starting pitchers, but I just think if they were that worried about that, they're not drafting Hagen Smith. I think it's just you get the talent in front of you, and you're
Mhm.
still getting Walker Martin, who could be a really good hitter, and you're getting a major league closer, who's I mean been one of the best closers in the league in the past, and he's still
Yeah.
young and under contract. I mean it's just it's a big package that I feel like you're rarely going to get elsewhere. Next trade, Ryan Helsley.
Ryan
You don't have
Helsley.
him going
I
anywhere,
don't have
do
him
you?
going anywhere, but it's more just like a. I mean, I know the Cardinals are dumping roster. Like they're selling, and he's older and an all star, led the league in saves this year, which sounds crazy with the season Class A had. um, but I just don't know where to put him. You know, I think it's tough to trade him and say that who's gonna. I mean, when you trade him, the bullpen is just wide open.
Yeah, I just think it's a Cardinals team that is not looking at a contender, and he's a free agent after this year. So it's kind of get what you can. And I didn't have Estevez going to the Phillies like you did, so I have him going to the Phillies. And if you're curious about the package, I did do a package, and it's Mick Abel, who's AAA arm, once super highly touted, and has just completely fallen apart in the past little bit. And then and Arun Escobar, who was a rookie ball guy who absolutely broke out this year. I really like him. Great numbers, but long way away from the majors, and it's kind of a sweetener toss in. So, I mean, you're not getting a ton, but again, it's a 30-year-old reliever who's got 1 year on his deal. So,
Yeah.
what should you really expect? Next guy's Fetty. I don't have him going anywhere, but you can talk about where you
I
got him.
similar to how I did it with Pavetta, I have him going to the Blue Jays. I think that they, as it stands, their team could just use an overhaul, and I think that Fetty, I don't know what happened in St. Louis because he looked great in Chicago and then not good at all in St. Louis. I don't know the exact numbers, but he
I can
yeah, look at them for me. But
it was like a little bit of the peripherals catching up to the actual stats because if you look, I mean 3.11 ERA and 3.72, but the 3.78 FIP to 4.05 FIP is a little more typical. But I mean, yeah, it's not going to be a big strikeout guy. Not, I mean, he's like a prototypical 4.5 and pitched out of his shoes for the first half of this season.
yeah, and I just think that the Blue Jays could use starting pitching, and yeah, I
Um, Next trade, another big one, Devin Williams.
Devin Williams. I liked him to Boston because I mean they need a closer with Jansen, Olden gone, and Hendricks also gone, I believe, and
He's
obviously
so good.
injured.
Wow. Hendricks is not gone.
Oh, he's not. He's still
Hendricks is
in.
there.
Okay, but he's 36 next year, coming
And
off of
coming off
yeah.
cancer and TJ.
So it's tough. I have him. I kind of didn't finalize the package because I didn't. It didn't make a whole lot of sense for it to be. But I think Will Abreu and someone makes a lot of sense. To your point, the lefty bats on the Boston lineup are a lot, and also Roman Anthony's coming up and he'll be ready for the start of the year next year. So
No, I like
by
that.
losing Will Abreu, they're not losing anything, and they're gaining an all-star closer. And then I couldn't think of anyone who really fit into that and spot. You know, I was like Kyle Teal,
No.
but they still have Contreras, and also yeah, he's really good.
Um, yeah, I mean, you would have to the prospect side is a little more. You would have to get into it. My trade is another combo. This is, I swear, I think this is the last combo one. So, but it's Devin Williams and William Contreras to the Detroit Tigers, and I think this is the Tigers' big move. Like I said, they only signed Ha-Seong Kim in free agency, but this is their move to bring them into relevancy right now. And I have them dealing Max Clark, their superstar first pick last year, Jaden Ham, who was a breakout. He's on my fantasy team. Love him. Jaden Ham's gonna be good. Breakout draft guy he was out of Western Michigan. Or out of Middle Tennessee, but he's playing at Western Michigan High A now. Then Jose Briseño, who's in the AFL right now, and he might as well win AFL MVP at 26'4", first base catcher kind of archetype. But they have Tyron Lorenzo, who's pretty much the same thing, but a switch hitter and has reached a level higher than him, who they really like from that Jack Flaherty trade. So I think it kind of opens up Briseño to be available for trade, and Max Clark is still far enough away from the majors where it's makes sense for a competing team. And then the last piece is Bo Brisky, and I know that's tough. We saw Bo Brisky kill it in the playoffs, but I think it's a similar deal to when Hader got traded to the Padres, right? They got who did they get in return? The Brewers got some closer from the Padres in return. Look up the deal.
Yeah,
I'm going crazy. But and then it was prospects too. So I think this could be kind of a thing where the Brewers are looking to free up some payroll. They'll get Brisky for extra years, and he can still be their closer or an elite back end piece if they decide that it's one of those other guys. I mean, they have a great bullpen as it is. They
all
don't
right.
necessarily need
It was Josh Hader for Taylor Rogers.
Taylor Rogers.
With an
Yeah.
A,
And at the
and then
time I was like Taylor Rogers was
Dinelson Lamet Robert Gasser and Esteri Ruiz.
Esther Ruiz, former
Yeah.
A. Well, not former, still A, but hasn't played all year. Um, and so I think that trade can make a lot of sense for both sides. I mean, Milwaukee would be getting an absolute haul. Clark, Ham, Briseño, and Brisky is one of the biggest trade packages we've seen since like the Juan Soto trade.
Yeah.
And obviously William Contreras and Devin Williams are massive pieces, but they wouldn't have to pay them. And Milwaukee has Jefferson Caro, who is out all this year, who's coming up at catcher, he's good. He's good to go. He's major league ready. Like he's going to be that guy. So I just think they're in a unique spot where giving up two starters at closer and catcher isn't that big a deficit, and they can pick up, I mean, top end prospects.
All right. We've got a little
Uh,
Yandy Diaz, which,
Yandy.
I mean, last year he wins the batting title, and then this year he was above average hitter, but very forgettable. Maybe just a forgettable Rays team, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's still Yandy Diaz. He's still great, above average hitter, but I see them trading him away, and I haven't. I didn't make a package for this, but the Baltimore Orioles they've had that O'Hearn Mountcastle platoon the entire year, but I think they could use just a guy to play first, and they've got the capital to get it done, and it just makes sense to me.
Wait, sorry. Oh, I was looking at the wrong kind. I was like looking at my guess and I was looking at yours. And I was like, Baltimore. I did not put Baltimore. Yeah, I'm fine with Baltimore. I don't necessarily I see them trading away first baseman and money.
No, I see them trading away first baseman too.
But where do you see Diaz playing?
First. Wait, what do you mean?
But like they would like why would you trade do you know what I'm saying? Like why would you trade O'Hearn and Mountcastle so you don't have to pay them and then get a guy who's about to get paid?
Oh,
Like
that's not.
the reason the Rays are trading Diaz is so they don't have to pay him.
Okay. I was just thinking about it from a more like hitter stance, less money. But
Well, I mean that's just like I mean that's the whole reason they're trading him.
yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know. It's just like and then the Orioles have obviously if you have Basayo getting traded, but they have prospects, Mayo and Basayo.
Hmm.
I've got him going to Texas. Like I said, I had Nate Lau out of there, and so I have him and Carlos Santana kind of stepping in as this righty lefty platoon that can play DH and first base. And I think with how good Diaz is on defense and Carlos Santana just won a Gold Glove, like you're getting a double Gold Glove hitting both sides platoon at first base and DH, and I think that's going to be really solid, and I don't think it'll be too expensive.
Hmm.
I
Definitely.
had them trading. It was for Abimelec Ortiz and Winston Santos.
Uh, hmm.
So Abimelec, who you almost got in fantasy.
Yeah, almost.
Okay, Luzardo.
Lizardo, I didn't. I mean, I think that he's definitely prime for trading, but I just couldn't really think of anywhere. And I think that they've still got a future. I mean, they've got Yuri Perez and Sandy coming back next year and all that. And I think that if they can just have that like rotation of yeah, Yuri, Sandy, Lazardo, Weathers, and Meyer, that's like five guys who you'd be thrilled to have. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got a lot of guys, so I could see him getting moved. I had the Mets for Jet Williams and Brett Beatty, just like a shakeup. Those
Hmm.
guys were/are top prospects and need need some playing time, and I don't see that coming with Jet Williams now that I mean it's Lindor, and I have them re-signing Iglesias, and Luis Angel is up there, and Ronnie Mauricio is coming back from injury. It's just I think there's a lot of stuff lining up in front of Jet Williams that looks unfavorable. And then Brett Beatty, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's already struggling to get ABs in the majors, and now all those guys are coming too. Vientos only established himself at third base. Like, I think it's time to cut your losses and get a good starting pitcher who you could really use.
Definitely.
Fairbanks, we can kind of fly. You didn't have him. I had him going
And
to Baltimore for Braylon Tavera and Steven Martinez, who really young guys, 6'4", 6'3", 17 and 18, 19 years old. I mean, the classic, if you're into prospects, you love them regardless of how Tavera's numbers looked this year. I was excited about him before the season, and Martinez looked really good this year. Arenado and Gray, the two Cardinals. I have Arenado Blue Jays. I just think fits in that lineup. Not too much thought into it. And Gray, I have him going to the Nationals. I just think these are teams that kind of outside, like not outside competition, but like they're not projected to be in, and they're just kind of picking up peripheral pieces. It's guys that I just expect not to get interest from those elite squads.
yeah, Arenado, I have him going to the Angels just because I feel like they're. I mean,
Is
he's
Rendon done?
yeah. I mean, that's the impression that I get, at least.
But like they're still playing him every day.
But I mean, come on.
Well, but like you know what I mean? Like there's a reason the Tigers didn't sign a shortstop for the past 5 years. It's not that Javi Baez was killing it. It's just that they were paying him a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that it would be a kind of thing that they would do because he's old and done. And then Sonny, I had him going to the Padres, but that was before I changed Snell to the Padres. So now I wasn't sure what to put for him.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's switch. Let's just go to the superlatives. We can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run through my thing at the end, so we can kind of go over those ones. These are superlative questions that we just kind of fun questions that I posed just to see what we would think. First one, well, bottom 5 payroll team: A's, Rays, Pirates, Marlins, or Tigers sign a player to a $100+ million contract.
I think no. I mean, none of those teams, in my mind, you look at the A's who never sign anyone to that. You look at the Rays and the Marlins who are both selling. And then Pittsburgh, I just didn't have them making any huge signings. And Detroit, same deal. I had them making guys who are going to make a decent amount of money, but not 100 million.
Yeah, I actually have 2 contracts qualifying for this, and it's Willie Adames with the Pittsburgh Pirates signing for 6/185, like I said, and then I have Devin Williams signing an extension with the Tigers after the trade for 5/105, outdoing Hader's deal from last season.
Makes sense.
So multiple teams, but Soto contract structure. What are you thinking?
I mean, we saw it with the Dodgers this year, and I think that it's going to be the Yankees are probably going to employ the same tactic of deferred money, where they make it so that the next however many years Soto's making nothing, and then right after that, when he's done, he starts making.
How long do you think the actual Shohei's was 10 for 700? What do you think the actual numbers are?
I think it'd be like 650 for probably 12 years.
Oh, so you think he's getting way less?
Yeah.
Even with deferred. I think, I don't know. I think he's getting more, like
Really?
significantly more. I think for sure they're going to want to break Shohei's overall number. That's just how they always do it. It's just every offseason they always want to say they're making the most money. So it's going to be a massive amount of years. So I had a 15 for 750 with no deferred money. And it's a $50 million AAV, takes him basically through his 40-year-old season. But it's like, it's Soto, and he's only 40. Like, some of these contracts are taking him through their, 45-year-old season. And it's like, you're getting these crippled guys out there. But I just think with his style of play and how good his eye is, it's going to age well. Like, he just showed, I mean, he was a Gold Glove finalist. Did he win Gold Glove this year?
No. I don't think
Who
he did.
won it in the AL
I
right
believe
field? No, yeah, he didn't.
I
I don't know. They came out like yesterday, but he was a finalist for the first time in his career. So I think it's things are pointing up rather than down, and it just seems like Yankees, Soto, they're gonna want to one up the
oh yeah,
West Coasters
it
from
was
last year.
Willier who won
It was Willier.
it. Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Uh, Starter get 200 million. We both said yes. Corbin
Corbin Burns.
Burns.
I mean, and that's not even accounting for like if Flaherty gets a longer term deal, which I don't think he will, but there's always a chance. Or if,
Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of guys who could get 200 mil. Like, I mean, if Mania
it's
gets a bigger deal, if
you think that would be crazy if Mania got 200 million. I think it
well,
would be if Snell gets 5 or more. I could see him getting 200 mil. If Flaherty, if someone really believes in Bueller, I guess, but I really don't see that after that injury. Um, let's see. All right. Well, number of top 100 MLB pipeline. I specified top
mm,
100 prospects traded. I said 6. This is like an arbitrary guess. I think with the whole RSN, the TV network contracts going down, all these competing teams that don't have money all of a sudden are going to need to find creative ways around that, and they're going to use prospects to do that. So we're going to see some fun trades.
yeah. I I said 4 just because like I think same deal, but I just had less projected trades. There's probably more than 4 are going to get traded, but I don't. I just threw out a number because I know people like to keep their prospects close, and you know,
Solid. Okay. I think we're probably done with all that. I'm just gonna run through my full rosters. I did a full layout just to be able to look at it. So in a better format. So I'm gonna run through it all and what I think is gonna happen this off season, and then we can get out of here.
hmm
So yeah, this is so basically if it's light blue, I think they're getting added through free agency. Orange is a trade. And I plan on kind of updating it throughout in the offseason. And I'll move some prospects up and down. And just eventually, I hope it'll be like what I project the opening day rosters will be. And then I'll get to compare, which I think will be cool. Angels, I had Profar, Severino, and Alex Wood signing there. Alex Wood just kind of 6 starter, could be a lefty out of the pen, long man. I mean, Angels, I don't think are going to expect to compete. So this is kind of a weird offseason for them because they like to spend money on veteran players, but don't compete. Astros re-sign Bregman, get Christian Walker at first, Kike in center, and Charlie Morton starting. Little reunion there, old man. Uncle Charlie. Seattle, Goldschmidt, Kim, Winker. This is really going to be an offseason of how many hitters can they possibly get to help out the best rotation in baseball.
yeah.
As an A's fan, you can see all the colors that I have right there. Unlimited editions. I know Forrest was talking about picking up some starting pitching today and how expensive that's going to be, but I I just can't project anybody trading to the A's because it's either gonna be some random guy who's under the radar enough where I don't notice it, or I'm gonna get my hopes way too high and we're not making a move. Um, Texas, again, weird offseason for Texas because of the whole money situation. I have Diaz going there, which for the same reason that I criticized your move of Diaz going to Baltimore, it doesn't make any sense for Diaz to go to Texas because Lau's getting moved. But I have Diaz and Nolan Jones coming, Carlos Santana. I just think you're trying to get Nolan Jones to bounce back alongside Evan Carter, and then you could have an elite young trio in Langford, Carter, and Jones, all power, speed, defense threats. I mean, that would be awesome, especially with how good their infield is. Kirby Yates and Trevor Williams round out the bullpen with no real additions through the rotation. I think you're kind of getting an addition through nothing with DeGrom and Molly coming back from injury and Rocker getting called up. So you're getting an instant boost there.
Definitely.
Cleveland trade I didn't talk about. I had Nico Honer coming from the Cubs. I think Honer is as good as gone. The Cubs have a ton of really good prospects coming up, as well as already having a packed infield. I almost had Honer going to the Giants. If it was free agency, I definitely would, because he's a head Royce kid from around the area. So I always like those narratives. Jose Quintana is going to be the fifth starter there. Hopefully, Gavin can look more like himself, and Tristan can bounce back off that injury, and they can have more of a solid five than they had this year. Detroit, I talked about making some big moves. Flaherty coming back. Ha-Seong Kim playing short, and then that big trade that sent Brisky and Max Clark out for Devin Williams and Wilson Contreras. Royals, I tried to make a big move. I was dancing around the idea of making a big move with the Orioles, where they would get one of O'Hearn or Mountcastle and Mullins to play center and platoon at first. But I ended up just signing some under the radar guys who I think could really help. Max Kepler, Anthony Santander, Michael Lorenzen, and Sean Manaea. I just think that those two can both pitch out of the bullpen, both pitch out of the rotation with success, and I think that lengthens that pitching staff greatly. And Santander, being a switch hitter, lengthens the lineup. Hopefully makes it so that it's not just Witt out there when Pasquantino kind of goes down and Perez is getting up there in age. So it's a question mark on how productive he'll be.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, a lot of talking. Breakdown. Minnesota, no as in free agency. I really like Minnesota. I think they've got a good squad, and I mean, excuse me. Their only real need this year was just kind of staying healthy. Joe Ryan was hurt. Royce Lewis always hurt. Buxton in and out of being hurt. If Edward Julien can kind of show he can be that guy that he was his rookie season, when I loved him, he was on my fantasy team. And I do like Zebby Matthews and David Festa down here, can step right into the rotation. I have them trading Pablo Lopez actually to the Yankees. He had a down season this year, and he's making almost $20 million for the next 3 years, which is not much for the Yankees to pay for a starting pitcher, but kind of a lot for the Twins. So I get them picking up Will Warren and Ben Rice, because now that the Yankees in my mock-off season have Alonso, Ben Rice is a bit of a man without a position. So the Minnesota Twins can pick him up, and he can play some catcher and first at platoon, I figure, because Jeffers and Miranda are righties. So Rice can step in there and hit lefty some of the time, and Will Warren, who made it the bigs and struggled. White Sox signed Abraham Toro, and then the three guys they picked up in the Giants deal, where they traded Crochet and Robert, Harrison, Doval, and Birdsong.
Mm-hmm.
AL East, Yankees, big moves. Alonso, Soto, trade for India, trade for Pablo Lopez, sign Jeff Hoffman, sign Patrick Corbin. I think it's a big offseason. They finally made it to the World Series, but it left a bad taste in their mouth. They're going to spend some money. I mean, we both had them as the highest spender this offseason. Boston, definitely got a type for Boston. They need some lefties. I had Monty and Freed and Scott coming. Righty hitters, Tyler O'Neill. They've been trying to get Mark Canha for years. Finally getting him here. And then Estrada, I had them getting from Masataka Yoshida. I just think that it's kind of a no-brainer, especially with them signing O'Neill and Canha in this. Get some big slugger righties, get the lefty outfielder DHs that are clogging it out of there, and get an elite bullpen piece that the Padres might be willing to let go, just because he is their fourth or fifth guy back there.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, I already talked about them getting Fairbanks, Evaldi, and Verlander. Again, this is the weird rotation that I was talking about. Evaldi, Verlander, Eflin. I just feel confident that they're going to have mid-threes ERAs this season, give you 10, 15 wins, and you just won't even have to think about it, right? So if you're the Orioles, that's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. Take it. Blue Jays, weird offseason. I feel like the Blue Jays always have weird offseasons. Arenado, DeYoung, Verdugo, Savali. Get some good hitters. Try and make something happen. They're in a weird spot. Give me one sec. Ooh, they're in a weird spot where it's like they probably should put it in and kind of just rebuild for the future. But because Vladdy is so valuable and only 25 and needing a contract, it's like, okay, we got to do it now. We got to show him that we're winning and he wants to be here, and this is what's going to happen before we all get fired. Bader and Jansen signing in Tampa Bay. I don't see them making any big moves. Just kind of some defensive guys fill in the cracks. Colorado, Adolis Garcia, I have them trading for straight up for Nolan Jones. I think Nolan Jones with his down season. Rangers a little more worried about the money. I think Garcia could provide something to Colorado that just has not been there on offense. He could hit 40, 45 bombs with his power and in Colorado, so it could be exciting. Andrew Kittredge was random. I just love Andrew Kittredge, leader of the holds, never strikes anyone out. Colorado could be cool. Who knows? Giants, one of the most active teams I had. Glaber, Story, JD Martinez, Randall Grichuk, Crochet, Scherzer, Scott Alexander, Clay Holmes. I mean, they're going all out. I think the Giants, like I keep saying, new front office. They want to make a splash. They've been so disappointing, especially in the offseason, arguably, has been when they've been the most disappointing. So finally that stops, hopefully. Dodgers, Teoscar, Turner, Roki, Blake Trinan. Roki's the only new guy. The rest of them, they're really just coming back. Turner was away for a little bit, but most of these guys, I just think championship pedigree. They want to bring back as many guys as possible on a budget. Those are the guys they get. O'Hearn, the Orioles, I have disassembling a little. I mean, as you saw their roster, I really think that they're going to try and allow Basayo and Mayo to play first, even at the start of the year. So trading O'Hearn and Mountcastle was big. So there's now some open spots. San Diego, Higashioka resign. Trade for Yoshida, trade for Mountcastle, Snell, Austin Adams, fills a lot of holes. They traded the reliever. They traded Estrada. That was pretty much the only loss. I mean, Kim was an earlier loss, obviously. Basically no ads here other than Milwaukee had some big decreases. Bo Brisky, Max Clark, Jaden Ham are new additions, but they lost. Obviously, they lost Contreras and they lost their star closer. Pittsburgh, Adames, Seawald, Cincinnati, Cortez, Estevez, Bueller, Heaney, McFarland. We talked about most of the big ones. Miami, they just made that one trade. Atlanta, Pavetta was a pickup. Is that an L? Sonny Gray, John Means to Washington. Philadelphia, I really like. We didn't talk about Michael Conforto. I think Conforto is about to have a career renaissance. I think he's a better hitter than people remember, and he's going to go somewhere that isn't San Francisco, and they do that weird platoon outfield thing where it's already hard enough to hit at the Giants ballpark. So, I mean, look at these OPSs. He's like a 50% better than league average hitter in these seasons. Like, I think someone's going to get him pretty cheap and be really happy. And I have that being the Phillies here, which would not be good for the rest of the league. Mets spend some good money, get some veterans. Darno, Hayward, Iglesias to help on offense. Luzardo, Kikuchi, Burns for the rotation. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I got through all of it. I can't believe it. Yeah, okay. Well, that was it. It was a little like kind of informal podcast style off-season thing. I hope we start making some more stuff. I think we're gonna have some more structured things, which I like a little more. I just wanted to give the comprehensive off-season dump for anyone who was curious. But yeah, we'll do some more trade proposals, and I imagine we'll do some mock GM stuff where we're like, oh, these are the teams. Let's counter some offers. Do some top 10 positions. I mean, anything baseball we'll be doing here. So sure. I'm excited to see it. Whenever you're ready, Nate, you can stop the recording and we can see what's going on.